Good evening, everyone. This is Brian Smith with Grief to Growth. We're back for another episode. And today's guest is Michelle Stein. Michelle Stein is a fellow Shining Light parent. I met Michelle through Helping Parents Heal. She's got quite a background. We're going to talk today about some experiences she had in early childhood, about the passing of her daughter, Olivia, experiences she's had with Olivia since then. And as you know, if you watch any of my episodes before, I don't believe in long introductions. I want to let Michelle tell the story. So with that, I want to introduce you to Michelle Stein. So welcome, Michelle.
Hi, thank you, Brian. Olivia transitioned on January 9th, 2010. And she had been in a horrible accident 9 months before, motorcycle accident. And I believe she died. She did die that night. And I find it really fascinating that she came back for exactly 9 months to prepare me for her death, the way she was with me for 9 months to prepare me for her birth. You mentioned when I was 12. Yeah, when I was 12, I had a white light experience. I was there was a lot of trauma going on, a lot of intensity, both at school and at home. And it wasn't an out-of-body experience. It wasn't, I didn't see anything other than the light. And the light, I was taking my mother some very hot soup because she was sick, and I got screamed at, and I spilled the soup on me and scalded myself and ran to my bedroom and was crying. And then I was surrounded by this white light that was pure love and pure compassion. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm not afraid to die. If this is what it is, I'm not afraid to die. And the other thing that happened that was very strange, I didn't tend to pray because I always thought praying was kind of like begging, you know. You ask for, okay. So I asked, I said, please give me the sword of wit. Now, I don't know what 12-year-old has for the sword of wit, but I was given the sword of wit. I went from being a very shy, sweet little girl to being sort of a warrior, and mostly when people would be abusive towards children. And that's what I did. I mean, I entered my power there.
So the white light experience you had, was it a light? Was there a voice or anything, or it was just a light around you, or kind of describe that a little bit to me?
I was completely surrounded by the white light. And in being surrounded by the light, I was also surrounded by this massive love that I truly didn't feel until 24 hours after Olivia died. She came to me. And that ineffable love that you cannot put words to with the human language was surrounding me, and so much compassion. And it wasn't a long thing. I didn't go anywhere. And after it happened, I was very matter of fact about it. I was like, okay, that's good. I'm not afraid to die anymore.
Yeah.
And I went on with my life. And I sort of and I know now that I was being given courage for what was going to be coming, because the next 4 or 5 years were pretty fraught. And I had courage given to me. And also, it was just the things that I was witnessing at school. The treatment of children just upset me at a soul level. And I found it so reprehensible that I couldn't keep quiet. And so I was given this sort of wit, and I was able to pretty much use it when I saw children being treated sadistically. And I never really got in trouble, which was pretty amazing. I was sort of protected. So, you know, and then at that point, I look back at that and I say, why didn't I? Because I was growing up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and this was the 70s, and there was a lot of metaphysical things going on. It was, you know, not hidden. Right. And I wonder, why didn't I go after that and study it the way you study near death and things like that. But I didn't. I pretty much went on my logical linear path and entered business and got married and had children and raised my 2 stepdaughters and my own 2 children. And everything was going along. My grandfather was the first experience I ever had of grief. And he died when I was about 30. And it was fascinating to me that for a year after he died, I felt him all the time. I was very close with my grandfather. He was he was my great love, you know?
Yeah.
And I had him with me for a year. And then he sort of left. And I thought, oh, you know, so I'm just aware of this. And 9 years later, I was in the bathroom and whoosh, my grandfather comes in and I said, hi, Grandpa, I'm so glad to see you or feel you. Oh, I'm in the bathroom. What are you here for?
Yeah.
And half an hour later, I got a phone call. My grandmother had had a killing stroke. She didn't die for about 6 days, but he came in. So that really, to me, proved to me that I wasn't making this up. I wasn't in my grief saying, oh, I need to feel my grandfather close to me because I miss him so much.
Yeah.
It was so emphatic, the feeling of him coming in. And it happened again when somebody else close to me passed. Both of my grandparents came in. I was taking classes down at Stanford and I was driving home in the 10:30 at 10:15. And they came into my car together. And I had the same reaction. It was like, oh, it's so good, you know, to feel you. I miss you. And then they were gone. And I found out that at that moment, someone very close to me was dying. So they came in. So that's all, yeah, and, you know, my husband and I would discuss what happens after death. And he was a firm believer that there was nothing past this earth. And he told me about his father. After his father died, he had a visitation dream. And anybody who's had a visitation dream knows that the quality of that is so much different than a regular dream. And he was describing it to me, and I said, that was a visit. And he really said, nope. No. So then we come to Olivia, and Olivia was just a remarkable young woman. She determined that she was going to go study in New York, and she got early admission to Columbia, and she had graduated from Columbia, and she was working on Madison Avenue, and things were happening, and the short story is she was in this horrible motorcycle accident. Fortunately for us, it happened in Marin County, so she was close.
Oh, okay. And
they told us that they did not expect her to live the night. The paramedics told me she was dead when they found her. And if she lived the night, they didn't expect her to live. They wouldn't be comfortable saying she was going to live until 2 weeks had passed. On day 13, they pretty much kicked her out and sent her to a rehab hospital.
How old was Olivia at the time?
She was 23 at the time. And because it was such a horrific accident, there was a newspaper article, and I read it to her, and it said, Olivia Stein, a 23-year-old Orinda woman. And Olivia said, oh, I'm a woman?
Yeah. I'm a 23-year-old, so I know, or 22-year-old, so I understand that.
It was like, I'm a woman, and that was really cute.
Yeah.
So the rehab hospital, she was there for about 36 hours. They were taking such horrible care of her that I said, that's it. Give me all of her paperwork, and I'm taking her home. And she had broken her neck, her back, her clavicle, her jaw was shattered. She lost 2 teeth. She had facial lacerations. She had skin removal. She had all of this stuff. But the worst thing was her liver had been nearly severed. It stopped being severed a millimeter from her vena cava. So it was like remarkable that she survived this.
Wow.
And so I brought her home and started taking her to all of her doctor's appointments and took care of her. And it was really like she was infantilized. I mean, she said to me, look at me, I'm like a baby. You change me 5 times a day. But she was waking up from, she would go to sleep. She wouldn't remember the accident. And I asked her, do you remember going somewhere? Because I wanted to know if she'd had a near-death experience.
Yes.
And she didn't remember. And in fact, she didn't remember the accident. And so she would fall asleep. And as she was falling asleep, I think the accident would come back and she would fly out of bed screaming. And she could never sort of settle. So I took her to a woman who was a somatic healer. And Olivia was very skeptical and very intellectual and very skeptical. And she sort of poo-pooed this stuff. She doesn't anymore, but she did.
Yeah.
And I said to her, look, Olivia, I'm going to take you to a woman. Just don't give me any back talk, please. Just don't tease me. Just go to the woman with an open mind and see if she can do some good for you. Olivia came out an hour later and she was like, oh my God, Mommy, she's better than any psychiatrist in the world.
Really?
And she slept through the night. She was able to go to sleep. She had released the trauma from her body. And I wish I had known more about all of these modalities then because, anyway. So 9 months later.
It sounds like she was really on the mend.
She was gorgeous.
Okay.
And in fact, I said to the plastic surgeon, because I took her in and he was pulling asphalt out of her face. And I said, boy, it's good to be 23. And he said, oh no, Mama. He says, this is not 23. This is a miracle.
Oh,
Said,
okay.
the way she was beautiful. She was just beautiful. And she was recovering. I mean, it was really bumpy because when she was released from the hospital, she was on massive amounts of painkillers, like 360 milligrams of OxyContin a day.
Wow.
There's massive amounts. So there was pulling her off of that, and that was bumpy. But 9 months later, she had a friend of hers. They'd become romantic, and the night before she died, he proposed to her, put a big ring on her finger, and they had gotten an apartment in Berkeley. And, she was determined to go back to New York. And because of the head injury, she went back in December and she called me and she said, I can't do it.
Okay.
She says, it's too much. And I really I respected her because I know how much she wanted to go back. She wanted to go back so badly. She was going to get this guy to transfer into the Pew School of Engineering at Columbia, her boyfriend.
Yeah.
So she was making it all happen. That's how she was.
Yeah.
So she and he got an apartment in Berkeley, and Harvey and I took over. And our son was home he was in he had gotten out of grad school. He was about to enter a doctoral program in New York, but he was home for the holidays. And so we took Chinese food over to their apartment, and I brought her flowers, and she was really touched. And she said, oh, Mommy, she says, aren't you happy for me? And I said, oh, we're so happy for you. And she says, I bought a bottle of champagne. Can we toast our engagement? And I had the worst feeling. And I said, you know what, sweetheart? Let's wait till next week. Daddy and I will take you guys out for a celebratory dinner. And so we had Chinese food and kissed and loved and went home. And I got into bed early, like at 10. I was really tired. 10:30, I woke up like my bed was on fire. And I went into the living room and I started pacing. And my son came home. He had gone out after he had gone out with friends. And my son came home and he said, what's wrong with you? And that's at 1:30. I've been pacing for hours. And I said, something really awful is going to happen tonight. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an earthquake, or I just don't know what's going to happen, but something horrible is going to happen tonight. And at 3:30 in the morning, it sort of released. And this crazy intensity released. And I got into bed and my husband said, what is wrong with you? And I said, something really horrible is going to happen. I said, they're a quarter of a mile from the Hayward Fault, and their building is crib block, but they're on the 4th floor. So if it collapses, they might survive. But if Olivia dies tonight, she dies on the happiest day of her life. Now, who says that?
Wow.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the next morning, I got the call from the fire department, and he said, please come to your daughter's apartment. And I said, what happened? I've been through this before. Tell me what happened. And he says, please come to your daughter's apartment. And I said, oh, she must be dead because she won't tell me. And so I shouted for Harvey, and I said, I'll drive, because I'm like super, super calm in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And we drove over there. And as soon as I got there, I saw her fiance talking to the police or a fireman. And I looked down the hallway and I said, is she dead? And he nodded, and I just dropped.
Wow.
And I said the first words out of my mouth. I was 52 when she died, and I'd always had this idea that I would live to be 92. And so the first words out of my mouth to Harvey were, how am I going to walk the earth without her for another 40 years?
Wow.
How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
And then I didn't really say anything, but I answered it. And it didn't come from my head. I don't know how to describe this other than it must have been channeled, but I answered my own question, and I said, I need to be of service to others. I didn't know how that would show up. So, and as I said, 24 hours later, she came to me. We spent the whole day at her apartment waiting for the coroner, and it was horrible. And the police did not want me near her, which was so unkind. And I finally got to see her when the coroner came. And so we came home, I went to bed. I woke up the next morning, and I woke up happy for a split second, and then remembered.
Yeah.
And the whole world crashes down, and I began to weep. And I became aware that she was right in front of me, but she was enormous. I can't describe it. She looked beautiful, and she gave me the feeling of she was such an ancient soul, beyond ancient, and wise beyond wisdom. And my daughter would have said to me, oh my God, Mommy, I'm so sorry. You know?
Yeah.
I think she would have said, this Olivia said, I am so sorry that you're going to have to carry this pain for the rest of your life. But there's a reason, there's a purpose, and it will unfold. And then she spent about 10 or 15 minutes with me, and she did something, made my body pick up something, not of my volition, but she did it. And I always thought she did it to cement it in my mind that it wasn't a dream, you know, to take the skepticism out of the
right.
Yeah, because you know you can talk yourself out of these things pretty easily, but this was such a powerful visit.
So did you see her with your physical eyes, or was this in your mind's eye?
No, physical eyes. It was, although I don't know, because when I see with my mind's eye now, sort of fills in like a sand painting, and then I see with my physical eyes. This was just so immediate that I wasn't really asking myself, how am I seeing this? I do know that everything we were communicating was purely telepathic, and it was very thorough and very involved, and lots of communication was going back and forth between us, and that was telepathic. And it's interesting too, because the things that she said to me made sense on the immediate level, but as the years have gone by, they've made sense on deeper levels.
Yeah.
And I told you when we touched on this, that it's kind of like, I look at it like a Muppet movie. You know, if you're 3, you get one area of the Muppet movie. But when you're an adult and you're watching it with your kids, you get the whole spectrum. You get all of the humor.
Right.
And, so there are many different levels. And as my awareness has grown, it it becomes more deep.
Yeah.
And but after that, my mantra was, I know Olivia's golden. I know she's golden, but
Right.
I'm still here.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, it was, how do you go about getting through that? And it took years before I started to even move forward.
Well, I know you've done, you sent me some of the things you've done since then. I know you've done tremendous amount of things since then. So how did you start to make that transition? Now,
it was really interesting. The first thing I did was I just started reading everything I could get my hands on. And it was interesting because Olivia had been sick like in 2008, I think, when she was still in college. But she was home for the holidays or something, and we were watching Oprah, and Brian Weiss and Past Life Regression was on. And I saw a rerun of that, and I thought, oh, I have to do that. And so I read his books, and then I found out that he doesn't see clients anymore. So I found out that he teaches a 5-day professional training at Omega. So I said, well, okay, I can do that. That way I'll get in and I'll get a past life regression. That was my thinking. So about 9 months after Olivia transitioned, I was at Rhinebeck, New York, and I was doing this, and it was really fascinating. It was nearly impossible for me to go into trance because my mind is so, I'm a control freak. You know, that's how I am.
Yeah, me too. I don't think anybody could put me in a trance.
Well, and you know something, Brian, that was what was interesting. It took me, I did have an experience at the weekend, because at the weekend, they had a weekend workshop with Raymond Moody, Brian Weiss, John Holland, and
oh, wow.
yeah, and it was all about life after death. And so I brought my son to New York. Maybe he was there. I don't know. I brought him up because I wanted him to be aware of this too, because we're all just in shock. No, he was living at home by then. And so it was so funny. Brian Weiss, during his thing on the morning, Saturday morning, took us into a past life regression. And immediately I looked down and I saw leather straps, like a skirt, and big masculine legs and leather sandals. And I was a Roman soldier, and I was a commander. Oh, wow. And I was in the midst of this ferocious battle. And I saw my men killing children, and I stopped. And I had no fear of anything hitting me. And I stopped and I called my slave over, and I said, they're killing all the children. I want you to round up all the children, take them to the next town, take all the children to the next town, because we're going to kill everybody here, and give them money to raise these children. And then I went forward in that life, and I died in my bed with my wife and my daughter by my side. So I come out of that and I think to myself, no way. That's just so me. That's quintessential me, the warrior for children.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then he had us do a psychometry exercise where we hold something. And instead of doing 2 people, we had this other woman join us because she couldn't do it with her husband because they know each other too well. So the 3 of us were doing it. She didn't even hold my jewelry. But she said to me, Michelle, I saw something for you, and I'm being told to tell you about it. You're a Roman soldier and you were fighting this big battle. And I thought, well, that's validation. That's telling me to get out of my own way and quit trying to doubt it, and just, it's finally worked. Right. The other thing that happened that weekend, that week before my son got there, I went up to the wellness center, and there was a young girl, Olivia's age, and she was so pretty, and I smiled at her and went in and made appointments or something. And I came out and she said, I've been given a message for you. She says, you have to study, you have to do the shamanic journey, and it must be with a woman named Frauke. And I said, okay. And she was so cute. She said, oh, you're really going to do it? And I said, honey, when you get to be my age, if somebody is that emphatic, you listen to them. Yeah. And so I went in, And I said, do you have someone named Frauke that does shamanic journeying? They said, oh yeah, but she's booked for months. And I said, here's my name, here's my number. I know you're going to get me in. And they called within an hour. I was in that night at 8 o'clock. I went up to her tent, and this is so far out of my comfort zone. Okay. I go up to her tent, and it's furs and candles and stones and crystals. And she was the most beautiful, warm, loving woman whose daughter had died 15 years before. And she was drawn to shamanism because of her daughter's death.
Yeah.
So she took me on the most rocking journey ever. It was amazing. And to find my spirit animal, which I did, emphatically. And then she took me, now I know what she did was she took me on a soul retrieval. But I had very intense visualizations during this. Okay, so that's, and then not much happened after that, except I had this group of people that took this course with Brian Weiss, were the most lovely, compassionate healers. He even remarked, I've never had such a group of really lovely people. And they became my tribe. And so then I'll tell you, Harvey had a great experience with Olivia. About 3 months after, he woke me up and he said, Michelle, he said, the whole bedroom turned blue. And I couldn't figure out why the whole bedroom was blue. And I got up, and it was the garage door clicker. We have a separate garage, so we can open the garage door from our, it's on our fireplace in our bedroom. And he says, and then I got back into bed and I was almost asleep and the whole bedroom went blue again. I said, wow, okay. And he says, and then I got back into bed and I wondered if it was Olivia, and I said, no, that's ridiculous. And he says, and then my computer, which I had turned off, went on.
Yeah.
He says, do you think it's Olivia? And I said, absolutely, it was Olivia.
Yeah.
So around the time I went to see Brian Weiss, it was also Olivia's first birthday. And I woke up very early that morning, and I was crying. And I said, it was like 3, 4 in the morning. And I said, Olivia, that was you that made the bedroom blue, wasn't it? Boom, the whole bedroom goes blue. So she turned on the light for me. We've had that garage door clicker for 20 years, and it's gone blue 2 nights. That for Harvey and then for me.
Wow.
So, okay, so
Harvey's obviously a believer now, or
Harvey believes.
Okay.
He absolutely is a believer now, and he laughs about it. There's no way she was going to let him not believe.
Yeah.
She adored her daddy. He adored her. So
cool. That's great.
She wants him aware. So the way it started to work for me when I started to finally come out and study with these different people is I would see something and it would resonate with me. There was a knowing that I needed to study this.
So this was about 2.5 years after Olivia passed?
Yeah, it was about 2.5 years after Olivia passed. I'll say that about 18 months after she passed, I felt like my brain was shattered, like it was in pieces.
Yeah.
And our grief therapist said to me, you have PTSD. And I said, well, I'm sure I do. And she sent me to an EMDR therapist, and that worked really quickly.
I've heard that does work really well.
Yeah, and it resolved the trauma. And at the end, I looked at her and I said, well, I think we're done. And she said, do you have any other questions? And I said, well, yeah, where is this going? And she started doing her thing, the finger. And I had this vision. It was all thousands of spirit light. Spirit looks like light. Thousands of them, like an army behind my back. And Olivia was there, and she knew that I could see this. She was so excited. She was like going like Tinkerbell, because she was zooming all over the place because she was so excited that I saw this.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, then I decided that I had been trained by two of the foremost experts in past life regressions, and I knew nothing about hypnotherapy. So for my own type A control freak brain, I had to go and learn hypnotherapy, which was the best thing I ever did, because I took a 200-hour course, and you learn to go into trance.
Oh, wow.
And now I can drop into trance very quickly because that's what happens. And I followed that up with 150 hours of an internship. It was actually more. And that really...
You said a 200-hour course?
200-hour course.
And 150 hours of internship.
150 hours of internship.
You're serious about this, yeah.
I was serious. But you know something? It was a joy. It was a joy to do it. And it changed me. And it was a wonderful thing to do. It was necessary. And then, funny thing, and even Frauke in that shamanic thing way back in 2010, she said, your daughter is laughing. She's saying mommy and drums. And she says she's getting a kick out of this. When I went to the open house for the School of Hypnotherapy, they also do other trainings, and they have a 2-year shamanic training course. And the man got up to speak, the teacher of that got up to speak, and he said, I am a former tenured professor of geophysics from SUNY Albany. And once I discovered shamanism, I gave up my tenured position. I am fully working and living as a shaman. And I thought, I bet he knows Frauke. He did. They're good friends. So you see these things come, and these little tiny validations that just sort of let you know you're on the right path.
They all just weave together, yeah.
Yeah. And so I did that as well. And
so you took shamanic training at that point?
I did for 2 years. Before I did the hypnotherapy or shamanism, the first thing I think that I did that was really powerful and changed me was I recognized that I had not been breathing since Olivia died. It's like I've been holding my breath. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine who's a medium said, you know, when I did a breathwork training, that's what shifted it. And I really started to hear spirit. And so I thought, okay, I need breathwork. And what comes up it's like, I call it Google guidance. So I go, breathwork. And I get that there's a psychedelic conference, 3-day conference in Oakland. And they have it was a week-long psychedelic conference, worldwide psychedelic conference, which I had no interest in. But they had a 3-day weekend workshop with Stan Grof, and he is the father of holotropic breathwork.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's the father of transpersonal psychology. I mean, he's a really interesting man. And he developed holotropic breathwork after LSD was outlawed, and to give you the same sort of powerful experience. Mm-hmm. And I did have a very powerful experience. You basically hyperventilate to poundingly loud music, and you have to have someone hold space for you and make sure you're safe. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I was in front of these 2 lights that were coming towards me. It was a tall light holding a small light. And as I'm watching, I see the tall light materialize into Olivia. And she's beautiful. Her hair is blowing like Beyonce in a wind machine, you know, the whole thing. And the little light turns into a baby. And I watch as that baby grows into a 31-year-old man. And he's gorgeous. He's standing next to her. His hair's blowing too. And he is the son that was never born to me.
Wow.
You know, and she was letting me know she's got her brother on the other side. And they're together, and she wanted me to meet him, and the 3 of us talked, and it was great because there was a lot of humor and a lot of teasing of me, and I would tease them, and it was just really sweet. It was like sitting at the dinner table.
Yeah. This is
Just
during your holotropic experience.
this is during the holotropic breath work. I am in some altered state of consciousness.
Yeah.
And I became aware that time was coming to an end. And I began to cry and really cry, weep. And I said to this son of mine, I'm so sorry you never got to come to Earth. And the two of them look at each other like your kids would look at each other, and they rolled their eyes and they threw their heads back and they started laughing. And Olivia said, oh, get over yourself, Mommy. You're so human.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, these things don't concern them.
Right.
What breaks our heart and makes us so sad, to them, it's just an experience. And but that also impacted everybody else in my holotropic breathwork group. There were 26 of us.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time when we were supposed to share. It took me almost an hour to figure out how to convey that.
Yeah.
And when I did, everybody was really touched.
Well, that's one of the things about this journey. I'm rereading Natalie Sudman's book, Application of Impossible Things.
It's wonderful.
I'm actually going to interview her in a couple of days. I'm so excited. But the thing that about being human is that we take everything here so seriously.
Uh-huh.
Think that, it's going to be forever.
Right.
And it's, so we have to use these different analogies. Like she uses an analogy, like it's like being in a movie, right? When you're watching a movie, you're engrossed in the movie, you're in the theater, you forget that you're in a theater, you get drawn into the movie, but then the movie ends and everything's okay. You walk outside in the sunlight, you forget that it was even daytime.
That's a great analogy.
And I think that's what it's like. That's what this human life is like. So like you said, when we cross over and go back home, then we just take it so much more lightly. So, but we think, my daughter was 15 when she passed. And I thought, you start thinking, well, she never got to get married. She never got to graduate from high school. She was going to go to my alma mater, Ohio State, she didn't get to do that. And I realized that I missed that. She didn't miss it. She's still having a great life.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, no, yeah, she didn't miss it. She's not missing anything. But, one day, hopefully not too distant future, we'll be back wasn't that quite an experience we just had?
Yeah. We definitely will.
Yeah. So I wanted to interject that because I have a lot of parents that listen to the podcast, and I know, you and I share that experience, and I want people to realize that it's not forever and that our kids are still happy. I was fortunate, as you said earlier, you kind of alluded to earlier, I studied a lot of afterlife stuff before Shayna passed. So I never had that feeling that Shayna was gone or that she, had ceased to exist. I always knew she was okay. And that was a blessing for me.
Mm-hmm. That was a blessing for me too. That visit that she gave me. It calmed me down. And I think I've really felt that Olivia had a really strong agenda, that she wanted me to learn what I've learned and I felt also that the only thing Olivia never could do was, when she was little, was tie her shoes. And I really felt the whole time I was reading everything and studying, I kept saying, I'm supposed to be of service. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm going to continue going forward until something appears or comes to be. And I said, I feel that Olivia is watching me patiently the way I did when she learned to tie her shoes. She's waiting for me to learn to tie my shoes. And I'll tell you about a couple more things, Doug. Right at the end of my 2-year shamanic studies, there's a technique it's the death rites, and it involves unwinding the chakras so that, like with a birth, most births go very easily. Sometimes there's a little trouble. So with death, the same thing, the spirit may not want to go to the light. And so in shamanism, they unwind the chakras and they push the spirit from the feet and they pull it out of the head. And they send it to the light. But you can use this technique with clients, and it's called spirit journey. And the way I was taught, my teacher said, okay, you have to swear to come back. You have to make an oath that you're going to come back into your body. And as he's saying this, I'm looking around the class, and there was a woman that I knew I had to do this with. And so I looked at her and I said, us? And she said, yes. So she did it for me first. She unwound all of my chakras, pushed on my feet, pulled me out. And as soon as she pulled me out, I am face to face with Olivia. Wow. And she does what I've craved the most, was the hug. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
And she says, hello, mommy. And she grabs me like this and just hugs me. And as we're like this far, face to face, she says, I'm going to take you where I am now. And I said, what is that? And we're gone. She shot me with her holding me. She shot me through the universe, through galaxies, through nebula, through just the immensity of the universe, and all over the place. And then she brought me back, and we landed, and she sort of pushed away from me, and she put her hands on my shoulders, and she looked me straight in the eye, and she said, you have to stay on Earth. Mm-hmm. You have to stay here. Mm-hmm. Because of course, I think you're always kind of willing to go.
Oh yeah.
Once you have a child on the other side.
Yeah.
So she let me know she showed me where she is. She let me know I'm supposed to be here and to quit thinking about not being here.
Yeah.
And I got my marching orders from her, but that was the most amazing experience. And thankfully I listened to my inner voice. And when this woman brought me out of trance, I looked at her, and her eyes, she had goggle eyes. She was like, and I said, I smiled, and she said, I saw that. And I said, what did you see? And she said, I don't know how to describe it, except that it looked like an event horizon. And I said, that's pretty much what it was. It was an event horizon. We just went through the universe.
Wow.
And she took me on that, which was really special. So then I think all of these studies have started to sort of amalgamate into their own creation.
Yeah.
And during hypnotherapy training, I took Harvey on a journey because I had to take someone on a journey. And I found him to be he's very good. He goes into trance easily. He's very visual. And it was his birthday, and it was his 70th birthday. And there's nothing I can get him. And my heart is kind of breaking for him because he wants Olivia. That's what he wants for his birthday.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. And so I said to him, why don't I take you on a journey to meet your higher self like I've done before? And we will ask your higher self and Olivia to bring Olivia in. And it worked. It worked. And I was stunned because I didn't know that it was possible. And immediately, as soon as I said, please ask Olivia to come in, he began to just weep. And so when I'm working with someone in trance, I will talk to them and I'll say, what's going on now and what's happening now. And I said, are you saying anything to each other? And he said, I'm too upset to speak. And I said, okay, it's okay to just sit there. So he told me later that Olivia sat next to him on a bench. She hugged him and she sat next to him on the bench, and her body was right next to his body, and she was holding his hand, and she put her other hand on top of his hand, and she just sat there with him. And I have since taken him on a journey to meet with Olivia, and they've had full-on conversations, so he's not been as shocked.
Wow.
And I thought, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
A couple years later, my son said to me, everybody's seen Olivia but me. So I said, I'll take you on this journey. And my son is a composer. And when Olivia, they were like this. They were the closest. And when Olivia died, they were both living in New York. And he was going to be entering a doctoral program. He was on course with a Fulbright scholarship, and he had his whole thing. And when she left, he said, that's it. I'm done. I'm coming home. And he came home, and he'd been teaching music, and he'd been working for the San Francisco Opera as a teaching artist, and which was a really cool program, teaching little kids to write an opera, which was really amazing.
Yeah.
So he was healing, and he was very good about healing. He went straight to a therapist. He started exercising, eating well. He taught himself to meditate. He was doing everything. He's kind of that way. He's very, very disciplined, very self-disciplined. But he wasn't connecting with Olivia. And so I took him on a journey to be with his higher self, which was interesting because his higher self, I was taking dictation because he was getting all this instruction on how to write his music, how to edit his music. It was intense. And then Olivia came in. And she didn't speak to him at first, but she spoke to him through metaphor. And then every question he would ask her, she would respond with song lyrics. Like the song would start playing, which was her humor. It was just her humor. But something shifted in him after that. And I took him to a shamanic drumming circle, and he has these incredible journeys. And he has really shifted. It's opened his world. So that does my heart good.
So and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you guys have all healed or are healing, I should say, fairly well. I mean, I hate when people say, "Oh, you're doing great," because it's like, yeah, no, I'm really not doing all that great. But considering the circumstances, as well as I can, and I know, having that sense of purpose, and it sounds like Shana and Olivia are very similar in that they drive us. So for me, I was like, all this work I've done before Shana passed, all the books I'd read and the studying I'd done and everything. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with all this? And Shana keeps coming through mediums and saying, you need to write a book. You need to do this and do that. So, and she pushes me. I mean, it's just like, when are you going to get this done? So I finally launched the book this week. So I'm like, okay, Shana, I got a book. Yeah. So, leave me alone on that one for now. So I understand, what you're saying, but it's, I do want to emphasize the fact that, when this happens, we're devastated, but if you just keep moving forward a little bit at a time and, just take those cues and the synchronicities that come into your life, it
is so important to, first of all, I was stunned. I was just poleaxed. I was like a deer in the headlights. I was hit by a truck and I was non-functioning.
Yeah.
But little things would happen. Hummingbirds. I'd be sitting on the porch weeping, and I'd hear, and I'd open my eyes, and there'd be a hummingbird right here doing this to me. And I knew it was Olivia saying, "Don't, mommy, cry. Don't cry. Cheer up." The dead of winter on her anniversary, one came to the window. Just crazy, crazy stuff. But if you ask, Spirit won't really do much until you ask. If you ask, they come. And then when they come, they may come this big because that's all they can get through. But if you say, "Oh, maybe," and say thank you, and then say, "I'd like more, please," then it does start to really unfold. It starts like this.
Yeah.
But it does, you get the ground under your feet, and it becomes a year after, right after Olivia's anniversary, a very close friend of ours, whose son had muscular dystrophy, and he was older than Olivia. it was Olivia's anniversary is the 9th of January. This was the last day of January. I was sitting on my front porch. It was a clear blue sky, beautiful day, because we're in California. So it was no wind, no clouds, nothing. It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I was looking, because I have a very pretty view down into a valley. And the weirdest thing happened. From nowhere, this little cotton ball cloud appeared. And I thought, where did that come from? It just appeared like that. And I've never seen a cloud just appear. Mm-hmm. And then another little cotton ball cloud just appeared right next to it. And then the two of them came together and kind of rolled around each other and got bigger and bigger and almost formed a heart shape at one point. And then I could see in the far valley this sort of mist coming up and filling in the cloud. And it was still swirling around. My phone rings, and it's my girlfriend. And I said, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I'm seeing something so bizarre. I've never seen this, and I don't know what's going on. And I said, but hi, how are you? And what are you calling for? And she says, Danny's in the hospital. They can't rouse him. He's unconscious. And I think they've given him too much painkiller and they need to back off, and I'm going to the hospital now. And I said, can I come? Can I give you any help? And she says, oh no, I've done this before. I'm going to do it again. Well, she called me the next morning. Danny died that night. So those two clouds, that was Olivia showing me she was coming in for Danny.
Yeah.
And there's, until you see something that's so out of the ordinary and something that's just not within the realm of reality, but it is happening in front of your eyes. And then the validation comes through. I mean, that woman called me in the moment that his mother called me in the moment that was happening. I told her about it. Mm-hmm. And then it became, of course, she couldn't hear that because she was in her grief,
Right.
But I kept saying, I know because Danny was in a wheelchair and I knew he was free.
Right.
He was showing me that he was free and just, so there are things that happen that you can either discount and stay miserable, or you can say, what if, and see that. And when you do acknowledge, they send more.
Yeah. I think, you're right. It is a choice. And the things that happen, they're typically subtle. And there's something that someone might say, well, that's a coincidence, or that's your mind playing tricks. And so you have a choice as to whether you want to see it and acknowledge it, or if, like you said, you can remain miserable. But I think if we remain open and if we remain flexible, because I've heard so many people say, well, I haven't gotten a dream visit, or I haven't gotten any signs at all. And then you start to ask them some questions, and you'll find out whether they're finding feathers all over the place, or they're finding dimes, or their electronics are acting strange. And they say, well, but I want a dream visit. And not everybody comes through, the same way. We don't all get the same signs. And some people, I've heard that our loved ones sometimes can't do a dream visit because we get too emotional. Yeah. I know the first few times Shani came to me in a dream, I would wake up immediately. I couldn't control my emotions. So I had to learn to, when I would see her, to not get, overly excited and wake myself up.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Olivia doesn't come to me in dreams, but she did recently. And it was another one of those off the charts crazy things. But I didn't dream about her. But it's funny you say that people say, but I want a dream visit. That just reminded me of when my kids were little and they'd say, but I want this.
Yeah.
And I would say to them, look at what you do have.
Right.
Look at what you do have. And grateful for that. And, it's kind of like you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need.
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's a very profound line. And the older I get, the more, sense it makes to me.
And I feel in a lot of ways that our kids have become parental for us almost. They're guiding us the way we guided them.
Yeah, they have a higher perspective than we do now. I mean, we still think of them as our kids, and they'll always be our kids. But right now, their minds have been open to more than we can comprehend from where we are right now. So I know they're definitely guiding us. I know they bring us together. And by the way, how did you find Helping Parents Heal? How long have you been part of Helping Parents Heal?
I read Mark Ireland's book
Okay.
a long time ago, like in that period where all I was doing was reading. So probably 2011.
Okay.
And Elizabeth had either started the Facebook group or was about to start the Facebook group, and I joined it. So pretty much around the time she started that group. It was hard for me, really hard for me to see the faces that would come up every day. Beautiful, beautiful children.
Yeah.
So early in my grief, it was hard. And there were times when I would have to, like when I would be scrolling, I'd have to hold my hand up because it hurt my heart to see these beautiful children.
It's really, really hard at the beginning, yeah.
But then as the years go by, it's almost like your kids' school friends.
Yeah.
You know, like, and there are certain kids that I know Olivia's with. And I know she's with them. And
they're hanging out together.
Hear her almost say, "Oh, they're so cool, Mom." You know. Yeah. So.
Well, there were a couple experiences that you mentioned when you wrote to me. I wanted to cover. You said that Olivia was supposed to go at the age of 17, or earlier.
So that's really, really weird. When I was at Omega in 2010, I went for a massage. Now, you're not expecting to get a reading when you go for a massage, but this woman starts working on me and she says, "There's a young woman lying on the table right next to you." Oh, and she says, "Is this your daughter?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And she told me, certain things, evidential things, so that I knew that it was Olivia. And then she said to me, she's saying that she was not supposed to go, or she was actually supposed to go when she was about 17 or 18 years old. But she renegotiated because she had a few things left that she wanted to learn. And she needed to go on to college and experience certain things. And I thought about that. When Olivia was 17 years old, I bought my kids, one car for them. They shared it, and it was an old Volvo station wagon because I wanted the safest car around my kids.
Yeah.
So Alexander was at college, and Olivia was here, and he called her. She's in the Volvo coming down the 2-lane highway towards our house, and bless her heart, she gets a phone call from her brother. She does what we told her to do. She pulls into a parking lot of a park because she knows she's not supposed to drive while she's talking on the phone. She goes in there, talks to her brother, hangs up, comes out of the parking lot of the park, and has to turn left onto this 2-lane highway. But she's a new driver, so she looks left, she looks right, and she doesn't look left again. She pulls out, and a Ford Econoline van with 2,000 pounds of tools is going to T-bone her. I get a phone call from her, and all she's doing is screaming. And a mother who was there, who pulled over, said, "Okay, we're down by the park." And I said, "I'll be there in 2 minutes." So I get down there, and she's screaming. I'm holding her. And she can't talk. She's just screaming. And the whole front end of the Volvo is gone. So you know how powerful that impact must have been, because to take out the front end and the engine of a Volvo is pretty intense. So I look around and I see this man, and he's like in shock. And so I put Olivia over to Harvey. I hand her to Harvey, and I walk up to this man, and I put my hands on his arms, and I said, "Was this your van?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Are you okay?" And he says, "I'm really shaken." He says, "I don't know how I avoided hitting your daughter." He said, "I was going straight into her, and I do not know where I got the strength to turn the van so that it hit the front of her car and not her." So now, I thought then, in 2010, I thought, oh, that must have been the time. Well, now I know, with everything I know, angels come in, and they change things. Like Natalie Sudman, when you talk to her, there's all this stuff that went on as she's rolling down the hill.
Right.
You know, there's a lot that goes on. So it was not her time to die. So somehow she must have conveyed that. They made that decision. And this man, and I said to him, oh my God, your livelihood, can I help you? Can I do anything for you? And he was like, I'm just so grateful your daughter's not dead, because I was convinced she was going to die.
Yeah.
And so that
Yeah,
was,
you know, it's interesting. I guess I'm just rereading that book, and I still go back and forth on whether everything is planned or whether there are accidents and how that all works together. And I'm really interested to talk to Natalie about it, because she does a really good job, I think, in her book of discussing that. But I think that we do have, if there are multiple exit points, we as parents, when our kids go, we can trust that was their time.
yeah.
So I know a lot of parents will hear this and say, well, why didn't an angel save my daughter, you know,
Right.
from the accident that she was in? And the answer is that was their time. And so I have to trust with Shana, because Shana had a very, very mild heart condition that we were told was not life-threatening at all. And if it was going to ever occur, it should have happened when she was exercising. She was an athlete. She played basketball and volleyball, and she passed away in her sleep. So I just have to trust, you know, that was her time.
You know, one of the things that calmed me when I was in my deep grief was there was a Beyond and Back something saved, but it was something on one of those channels, and it was all about near-death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I would watch it, and it really comforted me. But Harvey would get so angry, he would leave the room.
Mm-hmm.
He was angry because Olivia
Didn't come back.
choose to come back.
Yeah.
And he was furious about that. But I think about it, and you know, if this is true, Olivia was supposed to go at 17 or 18. She stayed to learn more. And then I know she was dead on March 26, 2009. She was dead on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And she stayed for 9 months. And so there are choices made. I'll know when I go and I talk to her.
Well, and the thing what I say to people is, I don't think we're always given a choice either. And the people that come back,
sometimes not. Yeah.
Most of the people that come back from near-death experiences say they weren't given a choice; they were sent back. So they say, I would have chosen to stay. So that's the first thing. But I know, you know, we don't know the people that crossed over and they said, okay, this is just your time, you know. And yes, maybe there are some people that choose to stay, but we don't know that.
Oh, that reminds me. I had a reading. This is interesting. I had a reading, and Olivia, she died in her sleep.
Okay.
And she did, when we left, she opened a bottle of wine. She got dressed up in her favorite dress and sat at her beautiful new furniture and toasted. And her fiance said she was a little tipsy, but she was not, you know, she had a 0.09 blood, and she had been taking some pain pills because of her broken bones and stuff. Nothing, you know, but it was her time.
Yeah.
But she went to sleep, and she died in her sleep. And I had a reading where she said to me, Mommy, when I came out of my body, I tried to go back in because I knew how upset you would be. And I tried to go back in, but I couldn't do it this time. Right. So she had done it before.
Right.
And she couldn't do it this time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. And so the other thing is, I've heard people say that I would have chosen to stay, and I've heard mothers say I would have chosen to stay. So we can't blame the people that do, because I think it's a higher perspective. It's a different perspective. And I think with Shana, people ask me, well, do they miss us the way we miss them? I think they miss us, but they don't miss us the way we miss them, because first of all, they can feel us, they can be with us, and they've got that higher perspective, and they know that the next 40 years or whatever it is just a blink of an eye, you know?
Yeah. And I've always kind of maintained that there is nothing but love and compassion and bliss where they are.
Right.
And the only slight dissonance that there might be is our deep, deep grief. They want us, and they do send us signs because they want us to know that they're good.
Yeah.
And they try hard to get through. And it's a kindness to your child to look for those things, ask for those things, look for them, and acknowledge.
Yeah, if you want to do what your child wants, I think you're right. That's what you'll do, is you'll do your best to carry on. And I everything I do for Shayna, and I acknowledge her in that, and I know that makes her happy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Our kids are, they're beautiful. They're beautiful, and they're golden.
Yeah,
which was my mantra from the beginning. They're golden.
Well, I really want to thank you for being for doing this interview. It's real a pleasure meeting you and hearing about your journey. You're a great example for what we can all aspire to do and to be. It's really amazing. So immediately you wanted to be of service, and that's what you've been doing.
I've been working towards that, yeah, and so it's coming together. And thank you. It was really a pleasure talking with you. I want parents to know that, yeah, I still do grieve. I really do. That I will get hit with that tidal wave every once in a while, but it is not sustained the way it used to be. And in fact, I can almost hear Olivia making fun of me when I do it. Like, come on, Mom, you know better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks, Michelle. It's been great talking to you.
Good talking to you.
Hey, thanks for watching. Before you leave, I'd like to just remind you, you can always find me at www.grief2growth.com. That's grief, numeral 2, growth.com. And you can schedule a free half-hour consultation if you'd like. Also, before you leave, please click on the like button here, click on subscribe, and click on the bell. By clicking like, YouTube will show the video to more people. And by subscribing and clicking the bell, you'll be notified when I release new material. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.